What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. We're back in the garage with the Evo. If you remember in the last video, we got the engine finally dropped in this car. So what I've been doing for the better half of the day is taking a lot of like the little mounts, like for the intercooler, the ECU or the ECM little control panel area, that big bracket type thing. Everything that was really rusty in this engine bay I've taken out, I've grinded down, sanded down, and resprayed black. So hopefully there will be little to no rust in this bay. If you also remember, we did have the valve cover put on last video. I did go ahead and take that off. That way I can get the turbo kit and everything in there without scratching it. So on the ground down here, you see I have my AC compressor that still needs to go in. We got the smaller line for that. My oil return for the turbo, the oil feed, the coolant feed, everything for the turbo kit has to go in. We got the alternator, but this is actually the old alternator. It was pretty crusty, so I ended up getting a new one. This is that ECU bracket that I cleaned up, made look a whole lot better, and I'll actually toss a clip on the screen of what it looked like before so you can see a little before and after. Now coming back to the car, what I want to do first is get that AC compressor put in those little ports back in the back of the firewall, and then hopefully I can still run the lines around the front. You know, normally I have that in before I put the engine in, but I don't think it'll make a difference. If I gotta pull this engine back out, we're just gonna not run AC, I guess. Well, over here is a new to us oil cooler. This side of it's looking a little bit rough. I think I can bend some of those fins back. The other side is perfect. And the reason we had to replace the oil cooler is because when the previous owner blew this thing up, it obviously sent metal shards all through your oil system and obviously would go through the oil cooler, and you can't really clean that out. So I did find a replacement. These things are very expensive for this car, like everything else. So I did find a guy. Don't mind my mess of a garage trying to organize here. This guy had this oil cooler, did come from a perfectly fine running engine, so we should be good there, and obviously didn't have to pay full Mitsubishi price or McLaren price. About the same anyways. Now I was gonna go ahead and get that thing slapped on the car, but when I bolt that up to our banjos down there, obviously there was still some oil in there, as you can tell by the freaking box it came in. So I don't want to do that because I don't have an oil filter under the car and it would just leak everything out on the floor. So we'll wait until I have an oil filter and then we'll get that bolted up. But I did manage to get all the accessories on. We got the AC compressor, our new alternator, and the power steering pump, and then all the lines are ran. Now I do want to clean up all these rusty clamps, and then all the bolts are going to get replaced with some JDC titanium, so there will be, you know, no rusty bolts, but these clamps will definitely either clean them up or replace those with some freshies.
How did you find a way to run from the city of the sun? You could have stayed, it's only over when the day is done. I never knew you was a runner, yeah. I mistook you for a son. It don't matter what we think when it's over.
So I just hooked up all of our fluid lines to the turbo, because I think it's gonna be easier to put it in as one unit rather than have all the lines already in the car or put the lines in separate. Especially with the way it sits under the manifold. I'd like to get the manifold connected to the turbo before it goes in the car, and I'm gonna try that because I think it will be easier to hook everything up on the turbo if it has a solid mounting point like the manifold. So I have all these lines plumbed up, and now we just gotta get the manifold connected. I'm just gonna loosely connect it to the turbo just in case we do have to take it off, and we'll see how this goes. Turbo kit is now officially in the car. Manifold, turbo, downpipe, all of our drain and feed lines are all hooked up. Did take me a little while to get the drain lines hooked up, especially the oil drain, because I did have everything bolted down and realized that thing needs to be put in before everything's bolted down. So figured that out the hard way, but we loosened everything up, got it in there, and retightened everything down. So now we can go ahead, clean up our valve cover surface again. I did just take the vacuum and clean out everything in our head just to make sure it's as clean as we can get it. Now, the little seam where the timing cover hits the head, you just gotta clean up the little RTV that we had there. I already did that, so let's just take some brake clean the surface, and then we can get our valve cover back on permanently and move on from there. We can start working on our intake manifold, get our throttle body hooked up, all of our accessories that go on the intake manifold. We're actually wrapping this thing up pretty quick. I just need to get a fuel system, and that's really the last thing that we're gonna need for this car, and a battery. And then we should be able to fire this thing up. And there we have it. The valve cover is back on. We got our coils nice and bolted down with beautiful JD Customs titanium hardware. And while we're on that subject, if you guys head over to JD Customs website, use code BSchomborn at checkout, you're gonna save 10% on all the titanium goodies. So whether it's engine bay dress-up bolts, lug nuts, valve stem caps, you name it, they probably got it. So head over there, use that discount code, and yeah, you're welcome. And to add on to that, these are the highest quality titanium products you're gonna find, and done by the best group of guys, so yeah. Anyways, now that everything is on, we got our nice Spinny Boy FP Black turbo back there. Hopefully we can make some jam with that. I wanna start getting our intake side put together so we can get our crusty throttle body back on there. Start figuring out what vacuum caps we're gonna have to run on the manifold, and what lines we got to run. I did go ahead and spray these guys out black so they look nice and brand new now. And yeah, our crusty throttle body. Maybe I'll clean that up, maybe I won't. We'll see. But yeah, I got to figure out how all these lines run. So let's get back to work, baby. This thing is coming out good. I like it. super solid progress today. We ended up getting the manifold on. We got a lot of the stuff plumbed up and bolted into our manifold. Throttle body's on. We got the little electric panel bracket thing set up and ready for everything on the harness, which we're gonna hit up tomorrow. But I think I'm gonna call it for tonight. I gotta go pick up some food because there's no food in the house. So do a little grocery shopping and then I'll pick up the camera and see you guys tomorrow. All right, it is the next morning now and we're obviously back out here. I went ahead this morning and pretty much pulled out our wiring harness to try and organize it. And I'll show you guys kind of what we're dealing with. So the first time I looked at this, I was probably just as lost as most of you guys are right now. But it's honestly pretty straightforward. It's like a multi-piece harness that spreads throughout and they all come from the fuse box. Obviously we have a big panel box and the ECM that sits kind of in that little cubby there. But most of this, so for example, this harness houses, looks like our 4 coils, and then that bracket that you see there actually mounts underneath our manifold. Actually goes into that hole there, and then these 2 holes here. So that's our pretty much the main part of the harness. Has the throttle body and everything coming off right here. This one is a lot of our accessories. So this is our alternator. This looks like probably goes to our starter. This also goes to the starter. This might just be a big ground, but I believe that's the ground for the starter. That also goes to the starter. So yeah, it all starts to make sense once you start pulling it all out. This box here mounts like somewhere in this area. And there's a bracket, which I'm gonna have to find. I might not have it, so we might have to order one. But you know, it might be somewhere over there, or in the trailer, or on that table. I don't know yet. But what I'd like to try to get done today is get most of the wiring sorted, and then we can get our thermostat and thermostat housing put back in there, and essentially just keep making progress on this thing. I still need to get oil filters. They're on the way. And a fuel system, because as you can see there's no rail there or anything, because the injectors we do have that are chilling on the table, I believe these are only 1050s and they're not going to do the trick. Either is this factory little tiny paper thin rail. So yeah, new stuff on the way.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
So the previous owner definitely did some sus stuff on this little, like, I don't even know what you call it, fuse link box or junction box, whatever it is. It looks like this fuse over here on the right blew and he just jumped it with a jumper wire, which is a little sus. So we're gonna replace this thing. They're pretty cheap, like 40 bucks or so, and we can have a new one and be nice and safe. But for mock-up purposes, we'll get it on there and that way we can run our harness and make sure everything's in the right spot. As I'm sorting this out, we have a few grounds that are gonna ground down on the frame here. So I did just go ahead and scrape away our beautiful paint job, if this would focus, just so we know we have a good ground there. And then same thing on this side as well. There are 2 grounds that go right to this frame rail. So now they're nice and clean and we can get those bolted down and then start running the rest of this. I know it kind of looks messy. That's kind of just the Evo wiring harness, but for the most part, everything is ran how it should be. So we have obviously our four coils hooked up. This guy mounts right here, comes around. When we have our fuel injectors, that's what all 4 of these connectors will go into. Coming over, we got our oil solenoids. Now, this is where I want to make a quick modification to the harness. It's a bit short. Normally, they'll run it right over the top and connect to the oil solenoid on this side. But I want to keep things clean, and I want to run it along the side. And we're just going to have to extend that wire a little bit to get it to reach. And that way, it'll be nice and clean up top on the valve cover. Power steering pump's hooked up. Coming down, we have this little guy hooked up. This was actually lobbed off my harness, so I just went ahead and made a new one real quick. And now that is all good and connected. And then everything down underneath on the starter, I know it's a little dark down here, alternator, AC compressor, everything is now hooked up. All of our grounds are hooked up. Transmission lines or power wires are hooked up. Boost controller, everything over here is good to go. Like I said, we are going to be replacing this because it's a little bit sus. So I still need to find the mount for this box to mount it to the side of the frame rail. But other than that, the only wires we have left are what's kind of hanging down there, and that's for the whole front clip. So everything that's in the bay is powered. I do have to replace this cam sensor because, yeah, she's pretty cooked, and I don't want to run that. So we'll get a new connector and repin it. Be good to go there. Yeah, everything's ran. Even our wires, I'm going to clean this up a little bit, but our wires for the side reflectors are ran, and solid progress on the wiring department. The last thing I want to do before I go in and make some dinner is get our turbo inlet and outlet on the compressor housing bolted on. We have new gaskets for those, and we just got to get them bolted on. So let's get that done, and then we'll call it there. Well, I just rolled the car outside for the first time that I've seen it outside with the new valve cover and stuff on it, and it's come a long way. I think this is really, truly shaping up to be one of the best ones I've done yet, and yeah, I'm so stoked to finally get this thing running. Wheels, tires, brakes are gonna be, most likely next video will be, yeah, the whole wheel setup, and then we just gotta get a fuel system on this rig, and it'll be good for a start. Honestly, like, I could probably dump fuel down the injector holes right now and should probably fire up. So, yeah, we're really, really close. I got to get a battery hooked up to it, and then we're going to be dialed. Sorry, someone's mowing the lawn at the neighbor's house, so it's a little noisy out here. But here it is outside, and yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get it back inside yet. This is how I threw out my back last week, but I'm kind of dumb, and I do this a lot. So yeah, overall in this video, we got the turbo kit on, we got all the wiring on, all the accessories are now on, so solid progress, and we don't have a whole lot left, and this thing will be a run and drive-in machine, and it'll move under its own power. So the rest of the body panels are at the paint shop. We just have to get the fenders, the hood, and the skirts painted, and then we'll have a complete body on this car. The only issue was with the hood, it had some cracking in the clear or the epoxy, whatever they use over the carbon, and we sanded it down pretty much as far as we could without going into the weave, and it's just like, it almost looks like it's cracked like through the weave. So we're probably just gonna sand it down and just end up spraying the whole hood red. I know it kind of sucks because it is a carbon hood, but you know, I don't want it to look like crap, so it is what it is. It'll go red, it'll match the rest of the car, and if we can leave like the vents exposed, we will. If not, oh well. It's carbon hood. You're just not gonna be able to tell it's carbon hood, I guess. Like I said, next video will be wheels and tires, so I'm excited. You guys are probably excited to finally see this car start to take form, and yeah, I'll catch you then. Until then, peace out. See y'all later. Real quick, kind of funny, kind of not. So we're pushing the car back in. The driver's side wheel bearing literally breaks apart. So yeah, next video will definitely be wheel bearings and wheel setup because this thing's about to fall off. All right, bye.